Did we? Am I set? Is that? I think that, and a little bit over here. I think this button. Oh no, what was that? Shouldn't have been that thing. Hey there, friends. Look at that. Even my set's messed up. Hey there, friends. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it might be in your part of the world.
Greetings, my excellent friend.
It is so good to see you. My name is Jeff Fritz, and today, what day is today? Today is April 8th, 2025, and we're going to write a little bit of code today. How you doing there, chat room? Lots of folks chatting already. Let me bring them up. They're right over here. We're broadcasting live on Twitch and YouTube. Let me say hello. Let me greet everybody here. C Sharp Titan. Hello, hello. Hope you're having a good evening. We'll talk about that, but happy 50th anniversary to Microsoft. Yes, pretty cool that they've reached that milestone. Right, one of the oldest of the big tech companies. Luce Carter, good afternoon to you. Hello, hello. It was great seeing you at MVP Summit. Null Sheffa with a big wave. Napalm Codes, happy time zone to you. Luce added her Aspire sticker from MVP Summit to the laptop right next to the USB-C port because Aspire helps you plug things together. I like that. I like that. It does. We're going to talk more about that and dive in a little bit on some of the Aspire 9.2 items that are coming out. I'm not going to show anything that hasn't already been talked about, and everything that I will show you is available publicly in the open source repo. And I've been writing the blog post for the release notes, so you'll see that coming up here. CTI Geek, good morning to you. DGRO, or is it Degro? I think it was Degro. Degro the PhD, hello, good to see you. In equally dad joke level humor, Luce says she also put the C# sticker next to the HDMI port because the HDMI port helps you C#. I see what you did there. And the Hatbot didn't quite get the Seattle Kraken anchor quite right there. VS Code 199 release. Yes, it's getting there. Daniela is your official name. That's cool. Hey. So, lots going on. Let me go back and go to the comments from C# Titan about the 50th anniversary of Microsoft. C# Titan says, love the company, helped their career, opened many doors. Greetings from Melbourne, Australia. I'm similarly. I latched on to Microsoft tools back in 1997, 1998, and haven't looked back. It's been very good for my career. That has grown quite nicely, and I like that. I like that a lot. Let me start with some music here in the background. This is called White Scales. Come on, where is it? There's a little notice that's going to appear right here. This is music that's DMCA free, royalty free. Listen to it wherever you'd like. Big thanks to Harris Heller and his team of creators for this music we're listening to today. And it's like barely there in the background. There we go. But C# Titan continues to talk about the two protesters. Oh my goodness.
Chuck Beasley just gifted 10 subs.
Chuck, thank you so much. Really appreciate 10 gift subs into the channel. Thank you so much. I really appreciate 10 gift subs. Wow. Wow. Thank you. Big congratulations. Let me pause for a second. Big congratulations to Mr. Carnegie, Hat Kind Halls, Fish Belly on Twitch, Ring is in, Jimmy Babs 31, Just a Viewer, Greenish Pepper, Ro Rooston, Bitstone, and Ram Tenna. Congratulations. You got gift subs from our friend Chuck Beasley. Thank you so much. That is very kind. Your resub did come through. It came through a little bit earlier than when I was starting. One second here. All right, there we go. So, where was I? Yes, 50th anniversary of Microsoft. And this was a good distraction. Thank you. But C Sharp Titan goes on to comment about the two protesters at the Microsoft event. There was a 50th anniversary event. I was unable to participate because I had the day off. So I didn't see what happened. I didn't watch it at all. But I heard about it afterwards. There were folks that were upset about some of the decisions that that the Microsoft CEOs have made. And look, when you sign on to work for a company, you kind of sign on to whatever their mission statement, their slogan is, and you got to expect that leadership is going to take that and go in a direction that it is best for the company and hopefully best for all the employees. That problem is real easy to control and guide when you have a small company of 5 people, 50 people, 100 people. It's pretty easy to guide and make sure that just that small group of folks that work out of a local office get their get all of them get their best interest addressed and supported by the company. When you have 150,000 people that work for a company, there's a lot of different interests. Certainly when you're spread across all the geographies, you've got folks working all over the world. Not everybody is going to be supported the same way. And that's just the facts of working with a multinational company. Microsoft is based in America. Microsoft has to play by American rules. If the American government contracts Microsoft to provide software and the American government uses those resources in ways that not everybody agrees with, it's really hard to say, well, we're not going to support the government. It's the government of the country where you're based out of. It's hard. So there's a lot of good that is done in many places, but governments make decisions that hurt people. And when you have a contract for one part of the government, if another part hurts people, that's hard. That's hard to deal with. Hey, Thindall, hello. Good to see you. Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in. Smirking Squiggly with a big wave. Hello. Frozen Fusion. Yeah. So, review my code. You want me to review code, Thindall? What code would you like me to review? Shirts and stickers. Would I consider, the question from Thindall on this, the code review redemption here is, would I consider @ref in Blazor as an anti-pattern? No. I will pause and we can talk about this from Thindall for a second. In Blazor, let's actually just bring up a Blazor application. Like, we can do that, right? Create a new project. I'm going to create a new Blazor web app with the default templates. Come on, get started here. Thank you. Sure, Blazor app 7. We'll get that started and we'll talk about that. Let me see, catching up here. What do I think of all the tariffs? How will it affect tech companies in America? Asked C Sharp Titan. I do have Charlie running. I will park that for now and come back to that. So Smirking Squiggly saying hello there. The resub, yep. There was that, and that. We'll talk about this one. Yeah, there we go. So I've got the comments parked there. Something you talk to interns about. You don't have freedom of speech when you're talking about your employer. Yes, you have freedom of speech when you consider the government, your employer, your right to work for the employer. Two different things. You are not guaranteed a job with your employer. And you can disagree with your employer. When you're disrespectful and make a scene in public, That's not going to fly. A public corporate event disrupting it, yeah, that's not going to fly. Yes, they were terminated. Yes. That was published by, I forget which one of the news blogs yesterday. So, all right. The question was about using the ref keyword in Blazor from Thindall. Let's head over and talk about this just a little bit. So I started a new Blazor application, and the question is around, let's use the weather over here. No, we're building this on the fly. I'm gonna use the counter here. Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to do, the counter has a parameter here called current, has a variable called current count. I'm going to create a parameter called initial value, right? So let's create that public int initial count, and we'll make that a you had it. Thank you. All right. And what I'll do is I'll put this on the home page, because, right, you can add, initial count equals, and let's say 10, right, and now we'll have the counter on the home page, and I'll start this and let this run with hot reload running, and we'll take a look at this. You thought Bill Gates handled it well? I think they all handled it well. So, I didn't actually wire up that initial count. Right here, this will say equals. We'll start that with 0, and let's put. We need an override in here. On parameters. There it is. Sure. On parameter set, we will say current count equals initial count. Cool. Yeah, sure. Restart it. And we'll get that going. Sounds like you missed some entertaining drama. No, not really. Oh, bald bearded builder, hello, and Surly Dev is here as well. Hey, wait a sec. I was asking you about someplace relatively nearby to see if that was something you were interested in. I'm doing well, Surly Dev. We're answering this question over here from Thindall. Would I consider ref in Blazor an anti-pattern? So we just built a demo on the fly here to say, okay, here's our ability to interact with the counter. Let's also add one more parameter here. Parameter. Yep, there we go. And we'll make this public int increment. Get set. And we'll say it's 1. And what we'll do is here is we'll say plus equals increment, right? All right. So this isn't required. So I can, I can click this and it just increments. But if I want to be able to change that on the fly, right? How would I change that on the fly? Right, give me a input. Let's bind to something called increment. Yeah, you don't know what that was. Increment the counter by. Right now, I can set up a public int increment, and say this is 1. Yep, there's increment. Increment, right? Go back. Save. Increment the counter by 0. There it is. Right, and I can put a value in there, and now because it's on parameter set, it's re-initializing it. That's fine. But if I wanted to be able to do that without it binding, right? And I wanted to change that, say when a button was pressed or some other event, and I didn't want to immediately directly bind into it, right? I could do a button here. Just to make sure we get to the explaining where the @ref comes in here. I'll just call this clicked. Save increment. Right? I don't know. I think that's okay. Yeah, I know. I'm working on that here. Void clicked. And what we can do now, how do we change the parameter value on the counter? That's when we add a ref. And let's call this my counter. And we can say counter, my counter. So then here I can actually manipulate the parameter and say something like my counter dot increment equals increment. Right? So now when I change this value, nothing changes here. But when I click save, what do we miss here? It doesn't know what that is. Restart. So that does the increment. Yeah. So if I change this now to something else and I click save, now it increments by that. So what does this give you? Right? So here I've used the ref to be able to access and manipulate parameters on this. The other thing that this gives you, though, is the ability to wire up programmatically, not declaratively, wire up to methods, parameters, and events. So, right, I could put some sort of a reset counter button out here, right? Let's put a break here. Right? Let's put another break here. And put a button at on click. No. Reset counter. Right? So reset counter. And I could say my counter dot initial count equals 0. Right, so that increments by tens because I put that there. And if I make this thousands, now it increments by thousands, and I can click and reset the counter. And interesting, it's not. Oh, stand by. Let's make this a parameter. And we'll change that to the appropriate casing. Thank you. Yeah, I'm still editing here. So, current count. There we go. Yes, now restart. All right. Oh. Can't put a parameter on a field. Must be on a property. There we go. So, right, I can click and increment by ones. I can change that value, save that, and increment. And I'm doing that programmatically. Now, I could, right? Now, why isn't reset counter resetting the count? Yeah, my counter. Current count. Yeah, there. So it reset, but it didn't refresh it. And it didn't refresh it. Why? I'm not going to dig into it. I'm not going to. So what does the @ref gives us? @riva, yeah, I would need to do a state has changed is what's going on in there. So the ref gives us the ability to reach in and access and work with the components that are inside the, right, the properties, methods, and events that are inside of your component. When you do that programmatically, it's taking you a little bit further away from maintaining the UI through UI constructs, right? Because we have event callbacks that we can pass around that bubble up and interact with the other components. The methods that you might trigger on a component. Why is your component exposing methods? There's a good question. Component might not need to expose methods for something else to call to push and do something into there. You should probably be setting some sort of a state item on there. So is it an anti-pattern to have ref available? No, but it's probably an anti-pattern to call methods on your component. And that's probably something that you should stay away from. It's not terrible, but it's available to you. Everything that I've done here, I could do declaratively as well, right? Just putting attributes on my counter component and setting and binding those directly and using the binding framework that Blazor gives you. The binding framework does all the same things, but it also gives you, and it also gives you a little bit of the state has changed to manage the state of your page, your components. So, hey, Harish, 0 shouldn't be allowed on the increment. Yeah, we're building a demo on the fly here, so. The more you see other frameworks, you now admire how beautiful and intuitive React is. Tell me more. What do you mean? You don't know why you feel a bit dirty when you use ref instead of... There you go, take a look at the hat. Instead of binding to a value, but in this case, the most obvious answer to your problem is creating a .show method on the component. Well, do you need a .show component? .show... hang on. Where did it go? Why do you need a .show method when you might have a visible property on the component? Then when you set that visible property has changed, and it can go and evaluate and set state has changed appropriately for everything. So, right, there are some verbs, show, hide, that refresh, that are that do have a bit of a code smell to them that you can look at and say, yeah, we don't need that.
For 42
Frank!
months. Love.net aspire, it's like salt, you need it in most solution lol.
Yes. Ads have just kicked in. Thank you so much, everybody who has subscribed. How you doing there, Billy? Cool. Hello. Does it reset the count when I change the increment? It does. I'm sorry. No, it's right. So if I change that, it's not changing the count because I'm not binding to it. I'm not binding right on parameter set. That event, right? This event fires when you bind to a parameter and you come through using the declarative parameter. When you work with a property, you're calling that set, not the parameter binding, so this doesn't run. Right? So there's something that's a little bit tricky about how you interact with your components there. You need a show because it also needs to start a trigger to hide it again after a timeout. Okay, you could do that on your get set, right? In the set of your property, trigger your timer if the visible value being set is true. Oh, let's do that. Let's do that. Right, let's talk about this specifics. This is some text, right? So we could set let's do private bool text is visible equals true. No, we'll make it false. Right, and then we can wrap this. If text is visible, right, and okay, I just put it in there. That shouldn't be visible. If text is visible and I set it to false. Really? I need to restart this? Fine, I'll restart it. Now. Oh, oops. I thought I grabbed. Whatever. What? Oh, wrong key. No. How did I get... I need to change some keyboard settings. All right. There we go. Now it's... Okay. Right. So I could have a show method that flips text is visible. Right? Public void show text. Text is visible equals true. And then, right, we could do task delay. Let's do 2 seconds. That's 20 seconds. 2 seconds. Continue with, write some sort of an action. I don't care. Text is visible equals false. We're going to need to do this as a collection here because we need to do state that has changed. And we'll go out here and put one of these, and that should do. Let's add another button. Show text, right? And we'll add void show text. And to Tyndall's point, we could say my counter show text, and now that button. Come on now. Did I wire that up right? Oh, fine. Restart. I got you. Oh, that needs to be invoke async. Invoke async. I thought it was going to need to do that. And it was saying somewhere I was missing a semi. Oh, fine. Restart. Hey, Asheroth. Hello. Exactly. Exactly. So, why didn't it? My counter show text. My counter show text. Text is visible. True. I shouldn't have to call status changed. Well, no, I do. There it is. And after a few seconds, boom, goes away. Right? So I need to have this extra little bit. Is invoke async an alternative to the whole thread run? It's not an alternative, Luce. Invoke async is just like in Windows Forms. It's the way that you ensure that something is invoked on the current running thread of the user interface. Yep. So now, right, to the point of, well, I'd like that to run without having a ref, right? Because we're actually reaching into right? We're actually reaching into the counter to call show text, right? The other thing we could do here is say text visible equals right? Let's make this home text visible, just to make sure that I separate the values here. Public bool this get set right. That's not doing a thing now, but instead over here, what did I call it? Parameter public bool this, but instead of just doing a straight get set, oh no, let's continue to use this. Right, return text is visible. And on the set, we'll do, if value, no. If not value, right? Oh no, yeah, if value. Show text. That ends that. That ends that. There we go. Okay. See if I got this right. Yeah, I know. Restart. So now I'm doing the same thing with a property, and I'm not using the ref to set that value. So you have, right, different ways to interact and get there. So it takes a little bit of exploration, but never forget that you can call extra methods in here inside of a property to go do other things. So thank you so much for that question. We went around and talked a lot about that, and I hope it was valuable to folks that were watching. DDD Southwest? No, I'm not. Yeah, give it a shot. I'm doing well, thank you, Surly Dev. So, I explained a little bit about ref in Blazor. We talked about that. There's Asherah. If value start timer, yep. Is Blazor the real anti-pattern? No. And we talked about the invoke async. The other question that I wanted to get to is here from C# Titan. And I feel like for those of you who are outside the States, this is a fine question. What do I think of the tariffs? So this is something where it feels like a lot of folks here in the States are suddenly waking up and going, wait a sec. What? What is that? For those of you who don't know what's going on in politics, and I'm not intending to start a political dialogue. The president has been given emergency powers by Congress. Right or wrong, he's been given emergency powers, and he can enact tariffs on goods that are being traded with other countries. A tariff is a tax that must be paid by the importer when those goods arrive and before they can cross the border into that nation state. Example, car manufacturer Honda is importing parts, is importing vehicles from overseas. When they arrive at the port on the west coast of the United States, maybe they get flown in, maybe they come across a boat and they arrive in Chicago, who knows? When they arrive, before they're allowed to leave the port, this is customs, right? This is what happens when you go through customs. Before it's allowed to leave there, the importer must pay a tax, a fee to the government for the right to be able to bring those goods into the nation state. Okay, that's what a tariff is. There are folks in the United States who believed that the tariff was a tax that the United States could place on other countries. That's not the way it works. Other countries, other businesses outside the country are not under the governance of this country, and you cannot put laws, put rules, put taxes on them that they must pay. Okay. Last week, the president announced a 10% tariff across the board for every country. That effectively means that a 10% tax on every good, every product that's imported into the United States that's going to be paid by us. Not by folks outside, but by us. It is the single largest tax increase in history, with higher tariffs being applied for some nation states than others. But in this across the board 10% tariff, they've also applied it to some of the barren islands that are just north of Antarctica, that are inhabited only by penguins. Come on now. What this has done, though, is he's using it as a stick to force other countries to come and negotiate so that those other countries would lower their tariffs on American goods coming into their country. Right or wrong, there is a parade of folks that are going to be world leaders that are calling and trying to negotiate deals with the president. The uncertainty and chaos of his administration has really roiled the business world, the economic world. Banking relies on stability so that they can make their own gambles and bets. And quite frankly, they're not happy and they're pulling back on those investments that they don't want to gamble on while there's uncertainty in the trade policies of the United States. So the stock market has been crashing around the world. The side effect of this is other folks are going to find other suppliers for agriculture, for soybean, for corn, those things that America produces a lot of and ships overseas. And quite frankly, those farmers not just are going to lose a couple sales for a month or two, they're never going to recover it, because instead of folks buying those soybeans, that corn from farmer in Iowa, farmer in Oklahoma, they're finding an alternate supplier who's going to give them a good deal, and they're just going to stay there with that other supplier because they've got a good deal. This is what happens. There's other side effects of this that happen. Do I think it's a good idea? No. History over the last 100 years tells us no, it's a really bad idea. Free trade is a very good thing for everybody. Yeah, iPhones are going to cost a lot more when they come across into the United States. The other side effects of the tariffs, and the tariffs that he placed on Canada, people in Kentucky are really not happy because Kentucky ships a lot of whiskey into Canada. Kentucky makes a lot of whiskey. It's a big part of their state's economic profile. Canada is the number one purchaser of Kentucky whiskey. And they're not buying it at all. So Kentucky is really having a hard time. There's a lot of folks in Kentucky that are going to lose their jobs because people are not buying American whiskey. That's a terrible side effect. So those folks that are politicians in Kentucky that support the president, do you think they're going to get good votes from their constituents who are losing their jobs because of bad policy by the president? In 1930, when the Smoot-Hawley tariffs were enacted in the United States, the political party that was in government, that was in control and enacted those tariffs, they lost control of Congress for 60 years because folks voted against that party across the board. There were points where they were down and they couldn't block a supermajority. Okay? So it has very negative side effects, and both senators from Kentucky are saying, don't do this. Pull this back, repeal this. I think it's a bad mistake. There was a follow-up question. Do I think that the tariffs are going to affect big tech? Yes and no. The electronic goods are not something that crosses the border. There isn't something physical that crosses the border. The U.S. government, other governments haven't found a way to put tariffs on software or services that are provided across borders. So I don't think it's going to directly affect the big tech companies. I don't think that, I do think that there's going to be a problem with folks buying Android phones, iPhones, Surface devices. There's going to be a problem with that as the physical hardware goes to be shipped. So let me catch up here with chat. It's like he wants to move microservice architecture back to monolith America, says Spaghetti Developer. There are places where a monolith architecture is good, and there are places where microservice is good. In a small application, microservice is overthinking. So 95% of the people knew that tariffs affect customers at the end. No, they didn't, TV. No, they didn't. Interviews with people on the street who are less educated? No, did not. They heard what their presidential candidate at the time was promoting, and they believed him lock, stock. And they did not understand how they were being, how they would be affected. So, yeah, it's not 10% in most cases. In most cases, it is way more. Frank's right. Yeah, and I am deeply disappointed in how the controlling party in my country is politically attacking Canada. Like, shut up. Just shut up. Canada is a fantastic place that has been an amazing partner for the United States for hundreds of years. Shut the hell up. Brazilians pay over 60% tax over U.S. products. Oh, that's awful. Cost of electronic equipment like iPhones are going to cost more in other countries. Yes and no. So, he is trying to arrange a military parade for his birthday. He literally is following the book, the written history of other dictators. And politicians in this country are waking up and seeing this and going, holy crap, what did we do? I want to go back. There was a comment, though, about, I think it's Diego Garcia. Is that his name? I forget the gentleman's name. But there was a father from Maryland who was, there was a judgment. There was a standing court order that he was not to be deported. And the Immigrations and Customs folks picked him up and deported him. No questions, no investigation, no process, no review, no inspecting his identity. They literally picked him up and said, hey, you look like you don't belong here, and just took him and deported him. Family went to court and said, he's not supposed to be deported. He's supposed to be here. Judge said, yes, he's supposed to be here. Government appealed. It said, yeah, we made a mistake, but we're not bringing him back. They lost the appeal. Government appealed again to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said, yeah, we're siding with the government on this. The implication of that is the government can pick up anybody on the street, deport them to somewhere else in the world, and say, oops, we made a mistake. And they don't have to bring you back. That's a big problem. That's some not just dictator, but that's some Third Reich crap. People elected a clown and they're surprised at the circus. Yes. There's nothing to buy that's American. The manufacturing is not here, and you can't just start a factory overnight. It takes months, years to build the facilities, to recruit and train the workers. It doesn't happen overnight. How you doing there? Exceldro, hello! Wasn't there a scene in Ferris Bueller's Day Off about the tariffs? Yes. It was Ben Stein, the teacher of his class, while they were talking about, Ferris isn't in class, and he's talking about the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act. Yes, in class. So, it's... I don't think it's the end of globalism. I think it sounds like the American politicians are waking up. So, I'm old. I know all this because I'm old enough to have lived through it. I'm not that old. I'm not that old, infested. Hey, McNets, hello. You think people already voted last week in Supreme Court election? That was not the Supreme Court. That was the Wisconsin State Supreme Court that he tried to buy, and he spent literally $29 million. He was paying people to vote. That was deemed to be legal by the Supreme Court. And he lost by 10%. 10% he lost by. So Janko, I'm not going to let that through, but okay, sure. Yeah, microservices is not the end-all be-all. You're right, Master ATT. Architecture, software architecture particularly, I say this occasionally, it is the interesting intersection between engineering and art. There are places where it makes a lot of sense to go with something that is trendy and interesting. There are other places where, you know what, take your time and analyze and choose what's right for you. In cyberpunk lore, the euro dollars came from Europe and other nations, not USA. Yeah. They've abandoned their responsibilities to serve as a check and balance. Yes, Congress has abandoned their responsibility, and it is disturbing how much that they relish in that. Hey, John, your parents moved from Greece to Canada first, said it's a great country, and then they moved to the States. Cool. All right. Diego Garcia is the island in the Indian Ocean, the country the IO domain is registered for. No, they got tariff too? Yeah, okay. No, the gentleman, I forget the guy's name who was the Maryland father. Robson started using Aspire as their way to speed up the startup for a service that depends on a database. Yes, Robson, when we get into our Aspire demos, we can talk about that. Remind me of that. Your way of thinking, better limp on the right path and run on the wrong path. Yeah. You can accidentally deport whoever you want. That's correct. That's what the Supreme Court has ruled on. And that's disgusting, to be frank. Is that at the end of the USA being a superpower? I think you're onto something, Master ATT. Yeah. The dollar value going down, the trust and reliability that the United States has provided for decades is waning quickly because of these decisions. Don't I think this detachment between American people and American politicians will lead to changes? No. Because they're burying their heads in the sand. The politicians are. There were millions of people protesting in 1,500 cities across the United States over the weekend. Nothing. Yeah. You love how other countries are being pushed away from the conservative brand. Maybe. You've never seen the rest of the world so united. Yeah, about America. Yeah, it is such a mistake they're making, and they do not hear it from the rest of the world. And Hybria, you're absolutely right. It is frightening how this old orange madman turns the world into turmoil. And the three branches of government are kowtowing to him and giving him the right to do whatever he wants. Like, it's awful. LTL King, not to get too much into it, but go back further. In 1913, they removed many of the tariffs, decided to tax the people directly. Yes. In 1970, all tariffs were removed and wages stopped going up. All manufacturing jobs went overseas, but housing kept going up. Have I seen the comparison of wages to housing? I have. But unemployment was zero. Inflation was flat and the envy of the world coming out of November 2024. You exchange the lower paying disinteresting work for other folks to do so that you can advance and do more advanced, more compelling, higher level work. Manufacturing is not a valuable thing that's going to drive the American economy. It's not. We've outgrown that. We've moved into other industries. Use that. Yeah, I know their goal is to remove the direct income tax. That's never going to happen. It's not. Because you're going to pay the massive tariffs on all the things that are coming in. Is somebody really going to spend $10,000 to buy a laptop? Because those parts are coming in from overseas. Oh, you're not going to spend... eventually they're going to bring the manufacturing back to the States. You still have to get the rare earth metals into the United States. Do you think those other countries are going to let it just come in at a cheap cost? No. You're not getting away from the fact that we, as a global society, have a global economy. A great example that I saw was vanilla. Vanilla grows in tropical climates. Madagascar produces most of the world's vanilla. You can't produce vanilla in the United States because we don't have that climate. We don't. So, where are you going to get vanilla? Hey, how you doing, Robson? Yeah, in Sao Paulo. Hello. Yeah, the ads. There you go. Update VS Code. Sorry for the American friends, says Tay TV. But here in Europe, people on the street say F America. We do not need them at all. Yeah, I don't... The isolationist ideas and policies of this administration do not work in 2020's global economy. It doesn't. You cannot produce everything for all of your people. You can't. Some stocks in Germany remain rather unaffected. Others lost like 30% these days. Everybody is affected. Everybody is affected because we have a global interwoven economy. The EU is considering tariffs on U.S. IT services. How are you going to charge a tariff on a service? How are you going to charge a tariff on a service like Netflix? Instead of it being 10 euros a month, you have to pay a tax on that. That's a sales tax. That's not a tariff at that point. That's different. Framework stops selling 2 lines of laptops in the U.S. on April 5th. Not surprised. Inflation never happened until 1924. Housing was always 1 week's pay for minimum wage. Housing is a result of inflation. No, housing is a result of supply and demand. Housing is a result of supply and demand. And when people buy houses and there aren't enough houses for everybody, they need to build more housing. So the demand for more housing goes up. When there's plenty of housing, the price of housing stays flat. However, there are real estate investors that buy extra housing and rent it. And they create demand by buying extra property, extra facilities, and raising prices so that they can get paid more. The Airbnb economy is further irritating that problem because you have people buying houses so that they can create vacation properties in the middle of downtown Morgantown, West Virginia. Like, that's not exactly a vacation property, but there's demand on housing in Morgantown, West Virginia, because people bought and have set up vacation properties, Airbnb properties, in downtown Morgantown. We need to raise global temperature so we can create the tropical climate in the U.S. Oh, yeah, China is going to rule the economy. Yes. You're going to eat chocolate, says ours. Artificial vanilla tastes like, well, artificial. Yes. Kiss my pixels. Hello. Good to see you. You don't think the EU considered tariffs, but there is talk about enforcing proper taxation. Yeah, that makes sense. I absolutely understand and see that. They're only building $500,000 homes. Sure. Because, right? People covet larger, happier, cooler looking homes. They covet that. They want the larger, bigger space. If you're comfortable in a 4-bedroom house with 2 baths, do you really need the 10-bedroom house with 30,000 square feet and an indoor pool and indoor basketball court and 6-car garage? No. But they covet that. Netflix is sold through branches in regional states who are responsible for local servers. They're not bought directly. There you go. Why aren't they building 700 square foot housing? Because people won't pay for that. People don't want 700 square foot housing. 700 square foot housing is a small hotel room. They don't want to. People aren't going to buy that because they want more space. So, if you rains, you need to play basketball in your indoor court, says Kiss My Pixels. In a global economy, the poorest Americans are still in the top 5%. Dark Anful Labs, that's interesting. 700 square feet is 65 square meters. Yeah. 700 square feet is a larger hotel room with 2 beds. That's about 700 square feet. I think that's right. So, we're going to talk about .NET Aspire today. There are things happening with the next release, the next version of .NET Aspire. And I test and use the Aspirify.net website to try out those new features. .NET Aspire is built and runs in the public. You can find the source code on GitHub. You're welcome to go and take a look at it. There are NuGet feeds available that you can download and use, the latest nightly builds if you're interested in that. It's larger than your two-room flat. Okay. Some folks like minimalist. That's just fine. Look, I took my RV out this weekend. First time taking it out for its shakedown. Has a little kitchen, a little dinette, little booth dining room table, couch with a TV in it, and one bathroom, 1 bedroom. Fantastic. fantastic. Had a great time. Could I live in there? Sure. So, let's catch up here with some more and let's move on. Robson Previato asks, is Aspire unbound from the .NET version? Yes. So .NET Aspire is a series of tools, libraries, and features that you can use with your applications. Not just .NET applications. .NET Aspire versions separately from .NET. And the current support cycle, because .NET Aspire is in an early growth period, is latest version only. So when a new version is released, you need to update to it. .NET Aspire has roughly a 2 to 3 month release cycle here. We're going to see .NET Aspire 9.2 come out, and .NET Aspire 9.3 is going to come out in the early summer thereabouts, and then we'll see .NET Aspire 10 be released with .NET 10 in November. .NET Aspire 9.2 and 9.1, the current versions, 9.2 is about to come out, do work with both .NET 8 and .NET 9. Too many updates? No, it's growing. And we need to keep up and get those features into people's hands as quickly as possible. Yeah. So, okay. Let's see. Can you use last version on .NET 8? Yes. TayTV asks, RV out, how much blue stuff did I cook? I cooked we had a great time cooking in our kitchen, so it's got full propane stove, oven, fantastic. Had a great time. Smirking Squiggly, we didn't cook the blue stuff, no, and I'm not going to spare. Why didn't they start Aspire numbering with version 1? Because they wanted the version number to track with .NET as much as possible. That's all. And version numbers are they're hand wavy things that nobody pays attention to and looks at and says, "Oh, that means something." What's the version number of your browser? Try asking that question. Right? I'm going to open Firefox and just take a look at the About page here. The version of Firefox browser is 137. Does that mean something? No. If you tend to wait until it's done, it's never going to be good enough. That's right, Kiss My Pixels. C# Titan asks, does Microsoft use Aspire in various development teams? Oh, I am so glad you asked that. I am so glad you asked that. Have I got a story for you? Let me head over here and no. Where is it? There are customer stories that you can read. Yeah, here it is. Customer showcase. Let's head over here and take a look, and I can show you this. This is the .NET customer showcase. And there's a couple different categories here, and you can see some of the customers that have shared their story of how they use various .NET tools and features. We just put up the .NET Aspire one, and to your question, does anybody at Microsoft use .NET Aspire? We've shared the story of Xbox. And the Xbox team uses .NET Aspire to do their local development. So that's something. There are other online products from Microsoft that also use .NET Aspire. I'm not sure who I'm allowed to refer to and discuss. everything at Microsoft that's online is large, and there's some large lines of business that use .NET Aspire as well. Muted? Did I go mute? No, I'm here. I'm good. So .NET Aspire is still on your to-do list. Sadly, too much other higher priority. So TV, what's great about .NET Aspire is it'll do those things that you don't want to do by default. Logging, tracing, metrics, health checks. Does all of those by default. So it gets you in and gets those things orchestrated for you with some sensible defaults. Ice Cream Stick Model asks, hang on, do this first. There you go. Why is .NET Aspire a separate thing? Why not integrate it into Visual Studio fully? Well, it's not a separate thing, right? All .NET things run at the command line, right? Run as a series of tools that you can run on Windows, Mac, and Linux. So are there, it's not a Visual Studio only thing. Is it something that they could add some premium features into Visual Studio to help you work with .NET Aspire? Sure. It's not a priority right now. Robson Previato would like to master Open Telemetry. Where do I start? I don't know. I'm working on that myself. I'm working on that one myself. So, all right. Moving on. Let's head back over here. So I wanted to show you. So this is Aspirify.net, right? The website that I built that shows all kinds of .NET Aspire news. Let me show you a couple things that you can do with .NET Aspire 9.2. And then I'll show you how I did the upgrade, because the way I did the upgrade, kind of crazy. Not gonna lie. There are all kinds of features and services here as part of the Aspirify.net dashboard. And you see we have some new icons here to indicate different types of resources. My website down here, application, storage with the little crate icon, database with a little can, child resources with gear icons here. Can I zoom in, make them a little bit easier to read? There you go. Right. So that's kind of cool. But there's also the ability now to do, let's zoom in there a bit more again, to do custom links and URLs. So I can add extra URLs here that go to wherever I'd like. So I can put a link here right to my GitHub source, click it, and go over there. I can add that in as an extra feature to the dashboard. But the killer feature that I think everybody kind of sees as eye candy, like, it's really cool to be able to see, here's all my resources in a table here on the dashboard. The killer feature that gets the oohs and ahs, we generate a graph view now of all the services that are running inside of your application, right? Come here. I want this over here. I don't like things crisscrossing. So I can see there's my website, right? And it relies on Output Cache, and it has an Output Cache Insight service here. Relies on a migration service that also has access to my security database. My Azure Functions access that, but they also access queues over here. I have pgadmin that works with my security server and that hosts the security database. And storage, I have tables and blobs, and I have functions storage down here. So really cool to be able to see how all of these pieces interact in a dynamically generated graph here. What's this? Maddie showed a great multi-repo demo at NDC London. We're trying to do more with multi-repo. We know that that's a question that folks have about how do I work with a multi-repository solution? And I think David Fowler analyzed and really broke down that problem well for folks. How do you work with multi-repo before .NET Aspire? You clone and put those things down from those other repositories if you need to interact with them in different places on disk. And then you stitch them back together, effectively turning your workstation into a mono repo. So what you really want is the mono repo feel of all those things that are integrated and in other repositories. You could do that by creating submodules with Git inside of a super repository that references all those other child repositories. You could do that, but managing those relationships is a pain in the neck. You could publish packages from those other repositories that you want to consume and consume that package and include that inside of your project. The question is the unit of modification and debugging that you want. If you want to be able to debug and step through code that is managed in somebody else's repository, you don't want another repository. You wanted a mono repo because you want to work on those things together. Right? If you want to work on and manage code in multiple repositories at the same time, not even thinking about .NET Aspire, right? You're not thinking about .NET Aspire. You're working on things that are in related repositories, and you want to be able to debug and work on those together as a single unit. You didn't want multiple repositories. You want the mono repo culture and benefits. That's what you really want. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. If you really do want those separations of things, then creating packages and publishing nightly instances or publishing packages when they change from those other repositories and bringing those in and including those in your larger service, that's okay. You can do that. And that's another way to include and have those features available to you. You could develop pretty much with Notepad++ and PowerShell if you wanted to, but you don't want to. It's, yeah, that's right. So how do you speed up the startup, asks Robson Previato. Let's go back there and take a look at that. Right, let me go back over here and I'll show you what I've done to help speed up the startup. Here's the deal, and to exactly your point of database, right here, I do with Redis, things like your database, in this case a Redis cache, tack on the with lifetime parameter now. This was available as of .NET Aspire 9, I believe, but you can say with lifetime persistent, and when you're working locally, it won't knock that service down each time you restart the application. So if we take a look over here at my table, right, there's my cache right there. It's running. So if we stop that, restart, right? So here it's going to go through, do my, why are you taking so long to build? There you go. So starting up the services, there we go. And when we look at the table, the cache is already running. I have a similar container lifetime persistent on my database and on my storage, so that the only thing that really starts up is the website down here. All those other things that aren't changing, I'm not rebuilding. There's no reason to knock those down and restart them. I set them to container lifetime persistent. What that does mean, though, is when I'm done developing and I step away from Visual Studio or the command line where I'm building and debugging, those containers are still running out there. And it's up to me then to take control, go over to Docker, and shut down those containers. Maddie showed the multi-repo demo for Aspire that backend had its own Aspire project. Front end also has a container location. Yep, you can do all of that. Is that available? The graph view, it's available in the nightly build right now. It's available in the 9.2 that's coming shortly. Are those custom URLs available as environment variables? No. No. So if I show you the details here for the website, they are provided right here. They are not included in the list of URLs that are being passed in. Okay. Those extra URLs are things that you tack on and you specify how you'd like them to interact with it. So here I'm declaring my website. Add project, there's the website. So I have these two statements that where I'm saying add an extra URL. Here's the URL I want to add to the dashboard, and here's the text. For this HTTPS endpoint, change the display text to this. So if we go back down to here, right, Aspirify.net website, that's the same 8199 website. If I... How'd I do that? It's going to 7199. How'd I do that? Should have gone here. There it is. Why is it going to standby? Did I do something wrong there? I probably did something wrong there. 7199. Why is it saying on? Now I do have Charlie running in the background, but why is it jumping ports? That's a bug. I think that's a bug. Let's see. Can I play asteroids with the graph? I can play billiards, right? I can just kind of. Totally upgrading. It's coming, but it's on a nightly right now. Graph looks too much like the share icon on phone apps. A little bit. Some of it does. Project Charlie leaked? No. Where'd it go? Yep, the map is up. I do have it over there. So it would complicate your environment just to have more billiard balls. Yeah. So I think it's a nice visualization. It certainly, right, gives you a nice graph that you can. I'd love to have a print button here to be able to print out, to take a screenshot of and take it over and show folks, you know, hey, here's what the system looks like, and be able to work with that. And it also has the little status check on them as well. So it's cool stuff. It is cool stuff. There are two other features that I'm not going to get into, but I did want to show those couple dashboard things because I think they're kind of impressive. But there's a command line tool coming, and yeah, I'll stop there and save some suspense for the blog post when it comes out. So But the Aspirify code, right? Where is it? I have build task. Go run that. No, debug start that, John. There it goes. Yep, 920 preview. So now when I run this, we should see the 920 pop up. Ad breaks have kicked in on Twitch. If you're watching on YouTube, yeah, no ads. So that's a thing. Here it comes. And I don't want to go to the GitHub source. Thank you. There we go. And if I scroll to the bottom, Aspire 920 preview. Nice. So we'll take a look at getting that built and deployed. Let me go to the question over here from Tay TV. What's the real value of using Aspire in small projects that are not microservices distributed and not using containers in cloud? And I come back to this, it does the things that you don't want to do. Take a look at details over here. Maintaining the connection strings to all of those other resources, database, my database, my Redis cache, my storage queues, right? I don't have to maintain them. They're just being passed around and managed for me. They're also going to at deployment time create secure service principles so that those connection strings contain as little password and API key information as possible. It also automatically wires up the OpenTelemetry so that I can see and interact with the performance and capabilities of my system, right? As I click around in here, like let's go over to some videos, or I want to take a look at this, go back over here, right? This is my local instance. So, right, bounce around, go into this thing, right? Those are all popping up as metrics. I didn't have to write extra code. This just works, okay? And I get these cool graphs. It will allow me to export, because this is OpenTelemetry, I can configure this to export to go to all kinds of other services. Azure Monitoring, Datadog, SolarWinds, take your pick, and you can export this over there. Prometheus with Grafana, go for it. I can see, right, I can see database commands. This is all built in, okay? Client connections usage, working with the Postgres database, that's not a good one. Commands duration, there you go. So you can see the duration of commands that are being executed against the database. The number of bytes, total number of bytes read, total number of bytes written, so you can see that. All built and included by default and easy to extend. But what I really like are the ability to see the traces. Like here, when I need to get a thumbnail for one of those articles, checks to see if the blob exists and takes 108 milliseconds. Goes and gets the information about it. Takes 150 milliseconds then to download it. And what's this one? The download is called, and then it goes and gets it and takes 103 of those 150 milliseconds. So I'm spending 263 milliseconds downloading a thumbnail to serve. Right? That's just me getting that thumbnail from storage to serve you. Is there a better way for me to do that? Probably. Probably. But I can output cache. I can put cache headers on that, and then you're never coming back to me for it. Neither are the, what's it called? It's between here and there. The proxy servers on the internet between you and my server. So that's really good stuff. But that's all baked into this that you don't have to build. the default service extensions that come with this, service defaults, by default, add OpenTelemetry to everything. Add health checks, service discovery capabilities, so you don't have to do the connection strings. It manages that for you. HTTP client defaults. I turned off the resilience for this, but service discovery and the HTTP client interactions. And you can see all the code for how that's configured. Now, I upgraded my health checks down here. More on that later. But I can dive in here, and I believe I have the health checks UI. Do I? No, it's not part of this deployment. In Charlie, I have the health checks UI running. This one isn't updated to the new version, but I can see with health checks UI, here's how all of my background services are functioning. That's phenomenal stuff. And that information can plug into various service notification capabilities. So that's the value of it. It's not cloud. It's not. I mean, cloud is certainly a big deal, but a big part of this. But it's getting you more productive with those distributed resources that you're including and bringing in. And even if it's just a website with a database, building and managing all of that locally is incredibly useful to have. I like this on dark mode, so I'm going to flip it back to dark. Is this open source? Is what open source? .NET Aspire is open source, yes. GitHub.com .NET Aspire. That is available for everybody to check out. What tool plugin do I use to show chat message on screen? That is Charlie doing that. I've got more work to do on it. It's not flowing in. It's not flying in the way that I want it to. But this is something that I built. This will be made available when I'm a little bit further along with it. I'm not there yet. Master ATT asks, am I paying for Aspire for each of these services? No. .NET Aspire is completely free. .NET Aspire runs locally, okay? Nothing needs to be paid for you to use the dashboard and all the things that you see that I went into here. The health checks, the traces, the metrics, all of that is completely free. When you publish your application to a service like Azure, then you will have to pay for those various locations and services that you deploy. But working locally, completely free. If you package this up and deploy it to your own data center, that only costs as much as it costs you to run your data center. So, really great stuff. Yeah, Health Checks UI, that's a package that's been available for some time that folks in the .NET world don't really use, even though it's a .NET-based package. You can either add it into an existing website, or it's a Docker container that will listen to health check endpoints that you pass in as environment variables, start those up and present them. I have it wired up as a container that runs locally as part of my .NET Aspire solution. So what is Aspire basically? It's a series of tools that allow you to coordinate the resources to build your application system. Not just your application. Many folks will, here in 2025, many folks will run their database inside of a container instead of running on... Many folks will run their database locally on their developer workstation inside of a container so they can shut it off when they're not actively developing. If it was running on the metal, if it was installed directly in the operating system, you don't have a way to easily turn it off without actually going into the services of your operating system and turning it off. By running it as a container, you have a little bit of control to start and stop it. .NET Aspire gives you the ability to declare and coordinate those, much like you would in a Docker Compose structure with C#, but it gives you so much more than Docker Compose because it also gives you the ability to pass around service discovery. So I define Redis here as a variable called cache. Create Redis. I'm going to call it output cache. I pass in this constant as the name of it. That cache, I'm going to pass into my website configuration. Right? And this is a little bit more advanced how I do this. And here, where I define, there's my website application, pass in a reference to the Redis cache. I don't create ports, user IDs, passwords. That's all managed for me. And I get a little bit of service discovery that happens inside my website because instead of me saying, well, go grab and here's the user ID and password to take out of an environment variable or out of a configuration setting or a key vault somewhere, what I can do is I can say, add a Redis client and point to that output cache that I declared over in AppHost. Done. No connection strings, no user IDs, no passwords, just a name of the service. And it will discover all of the connection information and wire that up for me. That's one piece of what .NET Aspire does. So we've got the dashboard, we have the orchestration of services, the service discovery. There's three pieces, right? OpenTelemetry is wired up by default with collections and delivery on your dashboard, right? So I can see all the things in distributed traces that are coming through. I've got metrics that I can interact with and take a look at. And, right, let's open that up. And I can immediately see this collection of information. You would have to stand up something like Prometheus and Grafana if you wanted an open source collection and presentation of this information. You can set those up. This is in the box by default with really nice configuration for you. And it gives you resiliency. There's retry stuff that's built in for .NET folks where it'll automatically retry connections that aren't behaving properly. So that's what Aspire is. It's those 5 things. It's a dashboard. It's resiliency in your network connections. It's orchestration of all the things that are in your application system. It's telemetry, and it's, I forget the last one, service discovery. Okay? All of those things comes in the box by default for free, and .NET developers have automatic wire up of all these things. When something is free, you are the product. Is Aspire gathering any data about the projects that it's used on? No. No, it's not. Nope. And you can see the source code for yourself. So, there you go. There is also a community toolkit that is open source that adds on things like running Ollama locally. You can run Ollama locally, an AI language model locally, orchestrated with .NET Aspire, and pass information back. In fact, that's how Charlie runs. I'll go back to... Oh my! Here's Charlie's dashboard, and there's Ollama. When you interact with the chatbot in Twitch and YouTube chat, it bounces some of those messages off of my local instance of Ollama. That is being orchestrated and run by .NET Aspire and passed into my web user interface. But I can also run the Open Web UI here as just another container and interact with Ollama directly. What is the name of the 2 baseball teams in Los Angeles? Did I turn off? I might have turned off. Did I turn off the GPU? I might still have the GPU turned off over here from when I was experimenting. No, it's turned on. There it is. There you go. Right? Nope, give me a new one. Write me a poem about the wonderful viewers on C# Fritz's Twitch chat. There you go. But this is all running locally, orchestrated and presented right here. So, the .NET Aspire Starter App project template should contain a Blazor project with authentication options that you do not need to implement those manually. You can turn that on. Yep, Zabrol's Health Checks UI. So, Hat Kindhouse, you're playing around with Aspire. Cool. You're welcome, Master ATT. There's an old saying. We got to that. It's free for local. They're hoping you host on Azure. Well, when you host on somebody else's service, whether you're using .NET Aspire or not, that's yours. Database in a container is such a game changer while developing. Yes. Make sure you set up volumes with your container so that when the container gets knocked down, the next instance of a container that starts up connects to that volume on disk and still works. Oh, Llama, I get it. You asked for a poem, not a novel. There you go. So, interesting that it converted it to that instead of the full spelling of my name, my screen name. A tribe of coders, young and old. There, look at that. It knows. Right, heck. Who is C# Fritz? What kind of hardware am I running the hosting model on? This is a GeForce, NVIDIA GeForce 3070. Talking about local Ollama, you're waiting for a day when you will be able to use our local LLM instead of Copilot in Visual Studio. You can change models in Visual Studio. Maybe I'm thinking GitHub. I'm sorry, maybe I'm thinking VS Code, and it's not in this one yet. I think so. Thank you for the follow. Hello. .NET Aspire Starter App Project Wizard does not have an option to select authentication. Okay, then start a Blazor app and add Aspire to it, and you can get that lit up and running. Yeah, it's probably only in VS Code. Hello, Mikris. How you doing? What was that? That's a welcome GIF that shows up with the Steve Ballmer developers chant. Yes. All of our followers get welcomed by our friend Steve. So what movie was that? Wasn't a movie. That wasn't a movie. That was real life. That was real life. That was at a company meeting years ago where Steve Ballmer was emphasizing how important developers are to a software company. So, is that meme not known by the youth? It was at least 12 to 15 years ago that he did the developers develop. Let's ask Olama. When did Steve Ballmer chant developers? No. And it should have been chant or shout. And I spelled his name wrong. Fine. Then let's go. I don't want to go to Copilot here. Ooh. Not what I wanted to do either. There we go. Copilot, not Bing. They keep changing the URL for it. Yeah, there it is. Microsoft event in 2000. Oh my gosh. It's even older than I thought. So 2025. It's 25 years ago. Wow. But yes. And yeah. You don't watch the Get Pumped to Code? No, we don't. So, but that's all running locally as I'm delivering and sharing a live stream with you out there, good friends. So, I know 2000 is 25 years ago, man. Ooh. Elite Al Tenor. Hello, welcome. You're a funny troll? Tell me more. Tell me more. Awesome. Let's continue. Steve Sandman is endangered now with LLM. So many companies think that developers are obsolete. That's a fantastic statement. Tay TV here. Here's the thing. Developers aren't extinct. Developers are changing. If you can write code faster, that doesn't mean that we still don't need people to review and ensure and set the specifications for how that code is built and delivered. It still takes insight to be able to deliver those features, those capabilities accurately, efficiently, securely. Take a look around at how many folks have been using Cursor to build little AI-based startups. And they get destroyed within their first month because they put their API keys right in the website. It's there, clearly visible in the JavaScript, in the HTML they're serving to every request. They're not doing things to prevent against SQL injection, HTML injection. You can cross-site script some of these websites and break them quick. And these folks are crying bloody murder because it's the code that Cursor generated for me. You have to know what you're generating, what you're getting, and be able to review and approve and include it. It's going to get better at writing code. But you still need to know how to put together what that request is that's coming into it. Your software development job is changing. It's changing. It's always been changing. But now with new tools that are available to you, you're going to be able to write more code more faster and hopefully better because your job is changing. Let me see here. Dun, 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 dun. You like to make fun of people's names? Okay, sure. Loads of companies seem to go that route. Let them. Yeah, Copilot can overreach. Vibe coding is a sham, says It's Coder's Life. You still need to know how to debug and understand underlying concepts. Yes. Just that development becomes faster. Now we get more software. So, let's talk about that for a second. Vibe coding is this interesting concept of being able to ask the AI, hey, go build this thing for me. And the Primogen tried to do vibe coding to build an entire game, tower defense game, over the course of 7 days in a tower defense game being built in a tower, working round the clock, streaming around the clock using Cursor. And at the end of 7 days, he still wasn't done. He actually got a day or two in and said, this architecture that it's building, I don't like it. Threw it out and started rebuilding. I think he rebuilt with Unity? Is that what he did? The tool only builds code as good as you ask it to, and that it's analyzed and it knows how to work with. If you don't give it good inputs, you're going to get bad outputs. And asking it to do very complex things is still very complex. You need to understand what it's delivering to you. And to go back to our earlier conversation about tariffs, folks didn't understand what it was giving to them. But that's a whole nother thing. Mikris, back off there a little bit. Back off. No, please don't. We do want more mature software. Yes. Chuck says, vibe coding just means we can write bad code more efficiently. So I think there's a real good place here for doing vibe coding to generate unit tests, integration tests. I think there's a very cool place there and you've seen, we did a little bit of this with Playwright testing here on stream. There's a very cool place of asking the AI to generate tests with Playwright and then going back and tweaking and tuning that a little bit. I think that's something that gets very interesting, very compelling as we want to grow our software. Someone Carpathy says vibe coding is here and in 10 days goes against it. Yeah. So, hey, happy Tuesday. That's our friend Brady Gaster. So where, and I think Brady appreciates a little bit of the discussion that we're in here today, talking about vibe coding and generating code and how Copilot is helping us. Where I think it gets interesting is getting a lot of that boilerplate code built for you so that you can, and we have those in templates now, but get a lot of that boilerplate code built for you so that you can jump in and then put your expertise in to go develop and build out and add those features that you need as a subject matter expert. I'll snooze the ads. It takes experience to know when to use vibe coding and when not to. Agreed. Now, I think there is a bit to be said about vibe coding for a live streamer as entertainment. That said, I think I can share this. I've been asked to do some live coding by the folks at Microsoft to show off a little bit of how some of those features work. I'll have more details on that coming up in the next few weeks. So that's coming. Brady says, I was mad about vibe coding until I built a React front end for a .NET backend API last week. Now you're hooked. The versions of the tools that I've been using to try to do AI-based development hasn't been great. So getting those things developed, and as you get into more sophisticated things, it's really hard to work with. It just does. That's just the nature of it. Additionally, the LLM does not know new frameworks, tools, features. It hasn't been trained on those. So we were talking about .NET Aspire 9.2. We looked at the graph view and some of those things. The LLM doesn't know the new with URLs methods. It doesn't know those. It doesn't know how to call and interact with it. The more you're so this is where I was saying about your job as a developer is going to change. And I believe that parents, teachers are going to become better developers. You have to speak to it in a language that is very direct and very explicit about what you want. And those folks who are parents and teachers and know how to be very explicit in giving instructions to children are going to do a fantastic job of prompt building, shifting and using prompts to generate code to set boundaries, directions for the types of applications that folks are building. It's like talking to you during one of your OCD fits. Yes. Friend, I need to give you a call this afternoon if you're around. So there's a lot we can do with this. I would like to use which is a good metaphor, the parents and school teachers. I want to use a little bit more AI-led coding on SharpSide and see if we can generate more of that faster. The AI is like a child that knows everything except how to use the knowledge they have. Yes. Yes! Great comments here from our friend Brady. Totally agree. So, there's a lot that we can grow and do with it. And the updated version of Visual Studio Code that has the agent mode built into it is going to go a long way for us. I'm opening VS Code and jumping into SharpSite. We can try and do a little bit of work here. So, something that the LLM doesn't do well is visual design. You can't get it to do something flashy, visual design with HTML and CSS. That isn't really a thing that I've been able to unlock yet. So, there's still that part when the LLM hallucinates, says Tay TV. There's very interesting problem in AI called model collapse. When AI degrades, the more it uses AI-generated inputs as learning. Yes. Right? This is photocopying a photocopy. Taking a picture of a picture, right? Resolution slowly gets worse and worse and worse. With tons of AI-generated content replacing human-written docs, this is the inevitable future. I think you're onto something, yes. You can help the AI not hallucinate by breaking your agent into multiple agents. Hey, take it easy there. But giving additional tasks for validation so that there are very specific things that the LLM does, and you're not asking it to build a cathedral. You're asking it to build a bench in the cathedral. Well, okay, you know what? We need 500 benches. Okay, you go do that. All right, I need another one to build the steps at the front of the cathedral. Okay, you go do that. The one that knows how to build the benches is going to build some amazing benches and knows how to repeat those again and again and again and again. But it's focused on that, and it's not going to hallucinate because it's building benches and steps and figuring out where to place carpet and how to build walls and so on and so forth. Don't tell it to build the whole cathedral. Focus it on a specific task. Then pivot and go do something else. Or run multiple agents. And there's so much more going on there. You wouldn't ask a bricklayer to run your electrical. Totally. Right? Think about building your house, building your home. Right? You've got carpenters that are building walls. You've got electricians that are running electricity. You've got plumbers that are putting in the plumbing. And you've got folks, bricklayers, working on the exterior. Fantastic. Division of labor. Also applies to... We've been doing this for how long? We were talking about distributed microservices and distributed architecture. Same thing. You wouldn't download a house. No, but you could download memory, I understand. There's a way to download memory. That's a thing. Where were we? We were trying to build scaffolding the database for SharpSight. I'm not going to get too far into this before I run out of time here today. We're not going to get too far into this today. What? I don't know who this is. Moving on. I do want to use... Let's see what it does. Let's see what it does. So, I've been working on SharpSight. This is... And folks online have been helping out. This is a CMS that allows you to build and host a website, right? And you could certainly AI generate all the things. But if we had a tool that would give you a whole lot of this by default, fantastic. Do we have a release date on Aspire 9.2? It's listed on the source code repository. You can go look at that. It's very soon. I'll just leave it at that. How you doing there, Eric? Over there on YouTube. Hello. So, what we're running into here is when you specify your database configuration and we go and tell it save this, we need to actually save that database and go create it if it doesn't exist. So we have a database that's being created for all of the content that's in the application. We need to do the same thing for our security database and then restart the application to apply the changes. So, right, I have this database manager that's being passed in that is this. Which is here. Right there. I need another one that will actually do for the security pieces. So I need to wire up this class because this class knows about the things that it needs. I need to wire up this class so that it can go create and run that same set of stuff. So what's this look like? If I put the interface up here for iManage Database, now I've got two things that are registered with iManage Database. I could do it with a key. I don't want to do that. Yes, Model Context Protocol is also out there now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's do iManage Database. Right, and I should get some implementation of this. Really? VS Code, what are you doing? And you're not going to let me F12 into it. Really? iManage Database. Really? You're not going to let me F12 into that one either. All right, I've got a pending update. Go ahead, do the update. What's that theme on VS Code? That's called Cyberpunk. Folks really like that theme. What can I tell you? Folks like that theme. Come on now, finish. Yeah. Come on. There's my C# dev kit here. Come on, get started. No. It's not going to let me F12 into it. Like, it sees the solution. You gonna let me F12 into that one? No. Really? There's iManage Database. I need these two methods. Kind of annoying that it's not picking up and showing me that. Endpoint doohickey. Because I name things interestingly. Void create database if not exist. Yes. That's not bad. We need to make that public, right? We need to make you public. Create scope, get required service, ensure created, migrate async. Yeah, they both look good to me. How did I get the services in here? Over here. No. I'm passing in a connection string. You don't need services. I can create it directly, right? Yeah. Let's see if it'll pick it up and create the context. No. Create the PG security context. Yeah. There you go. Do that. Yes. Good. That's all I need. But that's update database schema. Let's do the same thing here. Yeah. There we go. Why am I... No. There's no activity. I don't know what... there we go. Alright. So I should be able to go back over here. Created if it does not exist. So now I have to reach into this class. I'm going to create that directly because at this point, I don't want to figure it out. Security services equals new. No. There you go. Yeah. Why don't you like that? Because I need a using statement, don't I? Oh, VS Code. Public class. Give me that using statement right there. I might end up going back to Visual Studio. No, wait. No, it's not that one. That one. That should work. Restarting the application, though, I know how to do this. And it's a weird little trick. Because this is all top-level code. But if I want to restart this, right? Yeah, I don't think... No. Yeah, it's not. It's not going to give me the bits that I need here. I'm going to have to go back to Visual Studio. Yeah. Catching up here on something. All right. I don't know who that was. No. Yeah, even though DevKit is working, it's not working. Do I know that exists in app run async? Is there any difference in async? No, there isn't. No. But not app host, that one. So you can specify the URL to listen to, or a request delegate handler. Right, if you do run async, right, that might be valuable if you have it, you want to run it in the background. And it's this bit right here with this cancellation token that we want. Here's the deal. We need to be able to restart the website when the database configuration changes, because the database configuration is loaded way up high here. Where is it? Yeah, right there. Okay. So we need a way to restart so that we can turn that database injection on. How do we do that? Actually, wait a sec. Go back over here. Oh, wrong button. Wrong button. Stop. I wanted F12, not F11. Where is it? Yeah, right there. If that's not available, it's not going to work. And we need to pivot this so that if it's running in Aspire, it runs with the Aspire configuration. If it runs with a setting that's been saved in application settings, it runs with that setting instead. We still need an external mechanism to start it again. Correct. Correct. So that's one of the things that we're going to have to drop in here. But this bit right here and not that. Right there needs to change if the configuration is coming out of the running application. Okay. Yeah, we're going to programmatically stop the application and tell it to restart. Yep. But we need to be able to do this pivot. Not terrible. Check if the database connection string is available. No, that's not where it is. Do I have? Host configuration. It's not get connection string. Right, it's connection strings. No. What did we call it when we save it? Well, wait a sec, hang on. Constance DB name. Right, if we're trying to get the Aspire one. Right. If string is null or empty. Let's no. Check if app settings has the connection string. Man, I am not typing well. That's not it either. Where to go? Step 3. There it is. App state content connection string. do we have app state at the point here? Oh boy. And I had started this I run at startup idea. Let's go see where this is started. It's here. Application state isn't created yet. It's right there. I think I can move that up higher. I can move this higher. And that'll still work. That's an application state. Which is an application state model. So I should be able to pass in get configuration and go get that. Is iOptions monitor enough? No. Because I'm putting configuration somewhere else. Now, I could have implemented iConfiguration on application state. I could have. And then iOptions monitor would reload, but I'd have to wire that up as a custom configuration storage location. That begs the question, is there a way to rebuild configuration, application state, so it is another iConfiguration, and then use iOptions monitor? I don't know. Thinking. What do you think, chat room? What? Okay. Let's just brute force this, John. Right? That's the base version of this. Back up. There's the ability to get configuration. Okay. So I could pass into here application state. Right? I'm effectively I'm effectively moving what I have in my migration service into steps inside of the website. Think about this with me for a second. Right? This does ensure and run. I'm effectively moving this bit into part of the startup process, so that when you go to configure, it's already there and jumps off and does ensure and migrate. And I just deleted it. So these two services are going to go away. Well, this service is going to go away. Because I can make when you're running locally, I can make it start an ensure database during the website startup process. We need to think about this more. This is a big couple changes coming here, and I'm wrapping up stream in the next 10 minutes. We need to think about this more. Chat room, I need your help. That's how eShop does it. Yes, it does the migration when application starts up. When you have a database provider that could be swapped out for MongoDB, for SQL Server, for Cosmos DB, for you name it, SQLite. How do we swap that provider and do the migration appropriately at startup so that you can choose, here's my database provider at startup, and then have it go and apply the migrations? It's a good problem to have, because we're getting on a boundary here where we're trying to think abstractly about using a database. We want to be able to swap in different database implementations. Developers. Thank you for the follow. Big Picture Seer. We want to think about different database implementations, but welcome to the Debug Lounge. I like that. That's a great name. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. We want to be able to swap in different database implementations, but when you choose a different database implementation, at that point, if there wasn't, at that point when you choose the new one and you specify, here's where to go find it, go run the scaffolding at that point. When you first start up and there isn't one, and then there isn't a database provider selected, run database implementation at that point. This is turning into more of a refactor and pull out the database altogether and move that implementation further into a plugin. Right? And that's okay. Right? That's kind of where we wanted to end up with SharpSite, is you being able to choose a database provider off a collection of plugins and specify, here's the one that I want, and it goes and scaffolds and makes that available to you. The challenge and what's spinning in my head right now, and talking this out so that I can get some feedback from you, is a database is necessary to run SharpSite. So at the point that you've selected one, we're in a no database mode. Practic, thank you for joining us. When you're in a no database mode, we're just saving configuration to somewhere on disk that you're going to use when that database comes online. When the database is online, you're running in normal mode. When you're running as a developer with .NET Aspire, because you're developing and working on features that are beyond the startup, you don't want to have to go through and set up the startup every time. So maybe that's where you have your own application state saved locally, and we're using that. You still need to define and set up your resources inside of Aspire appropriately, whether you're using Postgres or Mongo or SQL Server. You need to stand up and manage which one of those you're working with. Quick pause. So how do we allow developers to pivot between those in Aspire setting? Maybe that's an app settings. Maybe that's a user secrets that you manage that says, here's my database provider, and it defines that. And we make our app host a little flexible so that when it defines a database, it grabs that appropriate provider integration loads it up and adds it. Abstract the DB context and have a factory to create the concrete instance. Yeah, we've done a bit of that, right? Having that abstract factory that will create the concrete instance, and when you choose which provider you want, you get the concrete version of that abstract factory that creates the concrete instance. We've got a little bit of that right now. I want to back up and rethink this, because this is a bigger refactoring than I was anticipating. And I think that and I think this is leading us right to, let's create database as plugin with a class of plugins called database. Data storage. Let's not call it database. Let's call it data storage. Because you might use blob storage, you might use some other storage mechanism that even saves JSON files to disk for the content. Who knows? But it'll be up to you how you manage and deploy those. Let's revisit this next time. We'll have a little bit more time to spelunk down into it and go after some of that information. Yeah, let's look at this for Thursday. And I'm going to wrap up for now. Yeah, let me wrap up for now, and let's talk about this a little in the Discord and look at spending Thursday, maybe even Friday morning, refactoring and building this database plugin concept out. Because Robson's on the right path here. Refactoring so that our database context, our database access, right now it's hidden behind a repository facade. A repository interface. But we also need that, maybe the repository also has that ability to create, if not exists, migrate and make current. Put those on the repository object, so that it becomes easy to just trigger and build those. Let's talk about that. Let's let this marinate for a little bit and come back. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. It's been a pleasure writing code with you. I need to get running. I've got some things to get ready for. On Thursday, I'll share this with you. Thursday, we're going to have our .NET Aspire release party. It's scheduled. It will be right after this stream on Thursday. Our friends Maddie Montequilla, Damian Edwards, David Fowler, I'll be joining them. We're going to talk about all the cool things that you can do with .NET Aspire 9.2. And I showed you a little bit of some of the cool things that have been added into the .NET Aspire dashboard. We're going to see more of that, some other features that were built, and watch this grow and give you some of those new features. We'll even talk a little bit about how to update to the new version of .NET Aspire. All right? Let me see who else is streaming on the big Twitch TV network that I can get you connected to, that's doing something cool, doing something fun out here. If you're watching on YouTube, of course, there's lots of other great videos that are available to you just below me or to the right. Taking a look around the horn here, I'm going to get you connected to... Wow. I'm not seeing some of our favorites out here. If I want to get you connected to somebody who's doing something cool, you know what? Let's go over to let's go over to Coder Girl Chan, who's co-working and studying. We can say hello to her. There we go. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll be back on Thursday. We'll do some more coding. We'll really pull apart this database plugin concept and get into rewriting how all these pieces fit together, because I think we're right on the edge of something here, and it feels like it might be a good time to take a step back and figure out this refactoring a little bit more properly. Hey, Corey, good to see you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you on Thursday, but until then, I wish you good health and good coding. Take care.